And Darley here, and now I'm going to break down the Indianapolis Colts draft needs. They made a pretty big splash getting Andre Johnson and Frank Gore. Too bad they're 32 and 35 years old. You don't know when Father Time's going to strike those two. But their offense wasn't a big problem last year. It was the defense. I feel like them getting Robert Mathis, Robert Mathis back will help them a lot. They could use another edge rusher. Now I'm going into the depth of what they need in the draft. They could use another edge rusher. Safety help. Secondary help. It's mainly defense for the Colts. Really the only thing that separates them from the second best team in their division, Houston, is Andrew Luck. If you put Andrew Luck on Houston, they're probably the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl with their defense. The Texans have the defense. In this division, the Colts have the offense, the Texans have the defense. Seems to be the story of that division. The top two teams in the division have either or, meaning Houston has Houston has the defense, Indianapolis has the offense. But Indy's biggest needs are on defense. They just got absolutely trounced by the Patriots. And I really feel like when they went up against a pretty potent offense, they struggled. And maybe that's game planning. I don't know. Because, they do have the talent to be there, to be a good defense. You saw in the playoffs against Peyton Manning. And everybody's going to make the excuse that Peyton was hurt, yada, yada, yada. No, Peyton was old. He showed that he's past his prime. He's done. He's finished. And the Colts took advantage of it. And, of course, Peyton still loves the Colts. He does. No matter how many people try and say no, he doesn't. He's lost 2 games, 2 out of 3 matchups against Indianapolis. That tells you a pretty big story. One of those losses was in the playoffs. Peyton doesn't want to be the enemy to the Indianapolis Colts. He doesn't. He does not want to be the enemy. And it was evident in the playoffs. He had a 5-yard easy first down, and he ended up throwing it out of bounds. And you could say again, it was the injury, it was this, it was that. The thing is, Peyton loves Indianapolis, but I'm not talking about Denver. I've already talked about them. But Indianapolis' problems are mainly defense. I just feel like they're inconsistent. The talent is there. They need depth. It's basically depth needs. Offensive line, same thing. Especially when you got J.J. Watt in your division, and now Vince Wilfork, and Whitney Merciless coming off a pretty big year for Houston. But outside of offensive line, it's mainly defense. They're pretty potent on the offensive side of the ball. Excuse me. Andrew Luck, a Houston kid. He hasn't signed. Excuse me. I know people don't want to hear this, but there are some athletes that like the thought of playing at home, and maybe Andrew Luck in these next couple of years, the Colts' success or failure might depend on whether he bolts. I know the Colts have picked up his 5th-year option, and I don't understand why they just haven't signed him to a pretty big deal. He's pretty much. You're seeing in the NFL draft now the quarterback struggle. Andrew Luck was the last number 1 pick type quarterback, and Indianapolis saying we're gonna just pick up his 5th-year option. It just buys them. It buys them more time to work a deal. Indy will get a deal done. I know they will. I'm just hoping Andrew Luck leaves Indianapolis because I hope he comes to my Texans. He's a great player. I'd love to have him here in Houston, and he's from Houston. But the difference between the Texans and the Colts is Luck. Without Luck, the Colts are 6-10, 7-9, 8-8 maybe, and maybe even worse. I don't know. Luck definitely gets too much of the blame for the Colts' losses to the Patriots, and I don't think Frank Gore is going to make much of a difference. I really don't. He's 32 years old. Running backs, you just don't know when they're going to hit their decline. And Andre Johnson, he's hit a steady decline in production. And you could talk about, Houston had quarterback issues. But DeAndre Hopkins didn't have any problem producing 1,000 yards last year. I know he had like 1 billion targets, but I just think it's the playmaking ability is just not there. He can get the yards after catch. He can get that big first down when you need it. But if we're talking about getting a big home run play, you're probably going to go get it from T.Y. Hilton or Dante Moncrief. Because now that Reggie Wayne's gone, I mean, I assume that he's going to see more time on the field. They don't need receivers. They don't need tight ends. They could actually, to me, they could be a wild card for Melvin Gordon. I really like Gordon in this draft. I think he's the best running back in this draft. And then after that, I mean, it's a pretty deep class of running backs. But if you're talking about, like, Marshawn Lynch, Nate Lacy, and the Jamal Charles, I mean, the thing is with drafts, you just never know. But running back position, teams are devaluing it. The Colts really should think about drafting a running back. I just don't think I don't think Gore and Johnson are going to have the kind of impact that people are imagining. That people are imagining them still in their 20s. They're not producing like that anymore. Houston was not going to pay a 35-year-old receiver Dez Bryant type money. By the way, that's pretty much what he was getting in Houston. Or similar contractual numbers. So the Texans were not going to pay a lot. It was a business move. It sucks to see him go. It pisses me off that he's gone to Indianapolis. I don't really like Indy. And then not picking up Chuck Pagano, not extending Chuck Pagano's contract, that just baffles me. He's a heck of a coach. He really is. But, you know, they got to get them to the Super Bowl. That Super Bowl bust in Indy. They are the favorites to win the division. But we'll see what happens in the draft. But yeah, like I said, their draft needs are offensive line and depth at pretty much every position on defense. They do need help. They do need to play better defense next year if they want to take any steps forward towards winning a championship. This has been Sam Darley with the Indianapolis Colts draft needs. Thanks for watching.